Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur ki jai. O he Vaishnava Thakura Rasa Gara Vidase Koruna Puri O he Vaishnava Thakura Toya Rasa Gara Vidase Pada Chaya Shogo He Amaya Tomara Charana Hori Diya Pada Chaya Shogo He Amaya Tomara Charana कृष्ण से तुम्हारा कृष्ण जी के पालो तुम्हारा शक्तिया छे कृष्ण से तुम्हारा कृष्ण जी के पालो तुम्हारा शक्तिया छे आमी तो कंगाला कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली ढाई दगा पाछे पाछे आमी तो कंगाला कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली ढाई दगा पाछे पाछे Hare Vaishnava Thakura Daya Rasa Daya Vedase Koruna Diya Pada Jaya Shodaya Maya Tomar Jaya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Jaya Vaishnava Jaya Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur Nityanai Gaur Premanande Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschathyade Shatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyacha Gitana Vamebhyo Vishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur ki Srila Prabhupada ki Krishna everyone, so thank you for coming. Today is our final part discussing Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur. So I was thinking what to do, but I thought it would be nice just to continue discussing the last few quotes from Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur. They're very insightful, very, very powerful, and they always give us so much to think about. So I'll do a few more of those, and then today I'll leave some time. Perhaps you have some questions and answers, so then we can also discuss those. So just do a quick review of some of the things that we learned from the life and the teachings of Srila Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur. A sadhu must tell the truth. We talked about this yesterday. That the saintly people are always absorbed in hearing about Krishna, in always in the transcendental sound vibration. They're bathing in that vibration, and it purifies their heart. It develops a devotion, and that devotion then goes on to nourish the whole world. So Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur used to say, I don't consider a bad day to be a day in which the sky was covered by clouds, but I consider a bad day a day in which I was not able to engage in discussing Harikatha. So always to be fully absorbed in that. Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur was very disappointed when those who had given up all material philosophies and conceptions would then come to the Krishna consciousness movement and bring this materialistic mentality into their spiritual life. And therefore he always spoke out that the devotees should not quarrel, they should not fight. We should try to see beyond our differences. Whatever it may be, we're in the hospital, everyone is getting purified, so be patient and try not to fight, try to build bridges. And then he talked about how example is so important. It's not so much what you say. St. Francis of Assisi, he mentioned once, he said, I preach every day, I preach 7 days a week, I preach 52 weeks in a year, and now and again I say something. In other words, the real preaching is not so much actually what you say. They say when a sadhu comes on the Vyasasana to speak, actually before they even open the mouth, everyone is purified. Srila Prabhupada came on the Vyasasana. Even before he spoke a word, Darshana Pavitra Etomar Gun, just by seeing a saintly person and their purity emanating from their character is enough, and whatever they say is an extra bonus. But actually just to be in the presence of someone who is practicing what they're preaching is very, very powerful. And he said that is what will really give substance to our movement, because yes, books are the basis, utility is the principle, preaching is the essence, but purity is the force. So, adoration of the seer and the seen. He said this is the whole thing I want to teach the world, that we are not the seer. Krishna is the seer. And we are the seen, we are the drishya, we are the object of Krishna's vision. And if we develop a purity, then Krishna will want to come and see us. That will be the perfection of our life. So don't think you can force yourself into Krishna's inner sanctum. You can only patiently knock at the door. And then you have to wait. You have to show Krishna you're sincere. And then eventually Krishna will give you his darshan. So Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur wanted to establish this to the world. He also talked about opposition. Sometimes we come to the Krishna consciousness movement, we try to do something, we try to take up some service, and sometimes there's opposition. Sometimes there's opposition from outside, sometimes there's opposition from inside. But whenever you try to do something good, they say if a path doesn't have any obstacles and any opposition, it probably means it's not leading anywhere significant. So he said whenever there is opposition, it's a good sign. It's like homeopathic treatment. It means that when the disease gets aggravated immediately, after taking the medicine is working. So therefore, all the great souls have to face opposition. All the great souls have to sometimes be misunderstood. Put your hands up if you've ever been misunderstood in the Hare Krishna movement. Yeah. Because sometimes we have a very good intention, but someone misunderstands us. It happens. And then very, very powerful teaching, Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur teaches us that there will always be people around you who are struggling, people around you who have faults, people around you who are not living up to the ideals that you expect of them. But when you see them, don't go down to the level. Don't let that degrade your own consciousness. Don't let that bring you to a lower level. Rather, be patient. Look inside yourself, see where you can improve, and try to lift yourself up, and by your example, lift them up as well. One devotee used to say to me, don't argue with an irrational person, because what they'll do is they'll bring you down to their level and they'll beat you with experience. Sometimes some people have like irrational arguments, they just want to pick a fight for no reason, and then we again see that fault and then we come down and we lower our own standards. So Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur said, don't let someone else's maya become your maya. You stay strong and you be the bigger person. You go up. And in that way, everything will be okay. And then Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur gave us instructions for how to chant. He was teaching in his Gaudiya Math how much emphasis is on japa. One time one person asked Srila Prabhupada, what is the secret to all of your success? And Prabhupada just lifted up his bead bag and pointed. He said, it's all in there. All the strength, all the purity, all the empowerment, all the resources and aspects that you need to spread and do your service and spread the Krishna consciousness movement and attain is all coming from the holy name of Krishna. So we talked about how Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur was put such an emphasis that devotees should chant very, very good japa. So these were some of the teachings we learned this morning. And now final few teachings I'll share with you which give us even more illumination on what Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur's heart was. And this next quote really is the heart of our parampara. And Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur once, while lecturing in front of many, many of his disciples, he said this statement, And many of his disciples caught it and they took it very, very seriously. He said, I wish that every selfless, tender-hearted person of the Gaudiya Math be prepared to shed 200 gallons of blood for the nourishment of the spiritual corpus of every individual in this world. I don't know how much blood is in a human body. Anyone know? Any doctors here?
5 liters.
5 liters in gallons? Okay, under 10. Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur says, my desire is that you will be willing to shed 200 gallons of blood to help other people in their spiritual journey towards Krishna. When I came to this movement, different things impressed me about the devotees. If I would ask you, what impressed you about the devotees? Anyone want to say? What impressed you when you met Hare Krishnas for the first time? You can just shout out.
Kindness.
Say again?
Kindness.
Their kindness. Good, you met the right devotees. Their brightness. Not just the cloth, but the effulgence.
Eating capacity.
Eating capacity, yeah, that, definitely. And good cooks as well, very good. That was that. Anything else? What else impressed you about Hare Krishnas?
Answers.
The answers, they had an answer for everything. Yeah, the guys had a philosophical answer for everything. I can relate to that. Yeah. Anything else? Joy. Happy. Emanating joy. Dancing, singing, yes.
Relationships to Vaishnavas.
That they were bowing down all the time. That they would, yeah, it's like, but they bow down so many times. Yeah, humble. What impressed me about the devotees was how hard they were working. They were really working hard. They really believed in what they were doing. I don't know if you've ever met someone called Parishuram Prabhu from London. Some of you may know him. For many, many years, 4 decades, he's been doing Food for Life. He goes everywhere. He goes into the most dangerous places. So recently he sent a message. He's just been in Israel, he's been in Ukraine, he's been everywhere, distributing prasadam and going into the most hostile places. So one time he came to me, one evening, he said, I'm going to Amsterdam. This was in London, I met him. He said, I'm going to Amsterdam for the Rath Yatra tomorrow. He said, you want to come with me? I said, yes. I didn't know what I was laying myself in for. I said, yeah, I'll come. I said, you got space for me? Yes, I've got plenty of space in the van, you come. So then I turned up the next night. We were going to drive all night, go to Amsterdam for the Rath Yatra. So I came in the evening to enter the van. And so I came to the front of the van to open the door to get into the front seat. And he said, and there were already 3 devotees there. So I said, oh, there's no space. He said, no, you're going in the back. So I opened the door in the back. And there was nothing there, there was no seat. It was just full of like vessels of prasadam and other things. So then he brought out a deck chair. He brought a deck chair in the back. And he said, you just sit here. Everything will be alright. Krishna takes care. I thought, okay, what to do? So then I was sitting in this deck chair in the back of this van, surrounded by prasadam in pitch black, I don't know where, you know, driving through wherever I was going through on the way to Amsterdam. And he was driving. And so we drove over the ferry, you know, over the ocean to France. And then we were driving, and then in the middle of the night, the police siren came. I heard it. It's like, oh no, what's this happened? So then the car with the van pulled over, and the policeman came. So he was speaking to them in the front. Where are you going? Who are you guys? Well, you know, why are you driving so late at night like that? And then the policeman, he shone the torch to the back. There was me on a deck chair. Like on the deck chair in the back with all his prasadam. So he looked at Parashuram in the driver's seat. He said, "Who is this guy?" Parashuram said, "He's my friend." He said, "I know he's your friend. What's he doing in the back? He can't sit in the deck chair in the back." So Parashuram looked at me. He said, "Why are you sitting in the back in the deck chair?" The policeman said, "He's got to get off." So Parashuram looked at me. He said, "You got to get off." So I got off the van. I had no idea where I was. I was somewhere in Holland, somewhere in Europe. And so I came off the van. And Parashuram said, "Just wait here. I'll be back soon." I said, "Krishna said that when he left Vrindavan. He didn't come back for years." And he said, "Don't worry." He goes, "Here's the deck chair. You can chill out here." So I was sitting there in a deck chair in some random place in the pitch black on the side of a street, and I had no idea when he was going to get back. But what he did, we had stopped somewhere in Belgium. It was amazing. He drove from London, where I stopped off on the deck chair. That was about a 6-hour drive. And then he drove another 3 hours to the Rath Yatra to Amsterdam. He dropped off all the devotees. Then he drove 3 hours back. He did pick me up. He came back, thankfully. He drove 3 hours back. Then he drove 3 hours again back to the Amsterdam. Then when he got there, no rest, he began cooking. And then as soon as he finished cooking the feast, the procession began. He was leading kirtan in the procession. He finished the procession. At the end of the procession, he served all the devotees prasadam. He packed it all up, and then he drove all the way back. And I counted, he must have gone for 36 hours non-stop. I was like, devotees are amazing. They work so hard for Krishna. And this really convinced me. So Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur, he wanted devotees to work hard, to help others, to share Krishna consciousness. You don't have to be a speaker. You can be a speaker. But you don't have to be a speaker to preach. You don't have to be a book distributor. You can be. You don't have to be. You can find your own way to go out there and share something wonderful with people of the world, because this is the heart of our parampara. When I was wondering why are the devotees working so hard, then when I read about Srila Prabhupada and how he was working so hard to spread Krishna consciousness, then I realized, oh, they've understood Srila Prabhupada's heart. Prabhupada was traveling everywhere, tirelessly. One time Srila Prabhupada, he came to America, there was a press conference, and an Indian reporter stood up and he said, "Swamiji, why have you come to America?" As if it was his country. So Prabhupada looked straight back at him and said, "Why have you come to America?" And he said, "I came for better opportunities." And Prabhupada said, "Me too." But you came for better opportunities to take, to earn. But I came for better opportunities to give, to serve, to contribute. And so Srila Prabhupada was just traveling. And then if you wonder, why was Srila Prabhupada working so hard? Because Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur's heart was the same. Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur was working hard to share Krishna consciousness with whoever he could. And why was Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur working so hard? Because it was the heart of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, don't be like a jailer who takes all of this knowledge and then just imprisons it within their own heart. Take all of this knowledge, take all of this mercy, take all of this unlimited spiritual joy that you've been given and share it with people. Be a giver. We live to give. So the Vaishnavas must be givers. It's the heart of our parampara. In the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam is mentioned like this, when Lord Shiva, when he drinks the poison which comes out of the milk ocean, then there's a very, very beautiful verse explaining how the highest way to worship Krishna, Paramaradhanam Dadhi Purushasya Hilatmanaha. That the highest way, the Param Aradhanam, the highest way to worship Krishna is to take on some trouble to help to connect other people to their spiritual essence. And so Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur, he was going to great lengths to spread Krishna consciousness. He wanted us to work hard, and he used everything. He used cars, he used the best clothes, the best cars, the best facilities, the best technology. Someone once came and criticized him. Why are you using the best cars, the best technology, the best clothes? You're a sadhu. He said, only the best should be used for Krishna. And the only people in the world who are using everything for Krishna are the sadhus. And therefore, actually, the only people in the world who have a right to use all the best things are the sadhus. That was his line of thinking. Yukta Vairagya, engage it all to basically spread Krishna consciousness more and more and more. So here you see, this was the logo, this was created by Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur himself. This was the logo of the Gaudiya Math. On the top, you have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, if you go clockwise to the left, on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's left hand, that book is the Bhagavatam. And therefore, all of this side, this right hand side as we look at it, this is known as the Bhagavat Marg. To Lord Chaitanya's right hand side, to our left, this is known as Pancharatra, deity worship. So the whole left hand side of the logo is all about temple worship. So Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur was telling the devotees in the Gaudiya Math that you must do this, the temple worship. See here you have Archanam with the ghee lamp, the bell. This says Vidhi Marg, the path of rules and regulations, Lakshmi, worshipping Lakshmi Narayan. So this left hand side is the temple worship, what we do, the Pancharatriki Vidhi, to purify ourselves, to connect with Krishna. But then on the right hand side, the Bhagavatam, this is Krishna. This says Raga Marg. The Raga Marg is to hear about Krishna, to chant about Krishna. And then he put the Mridanga, and he put this printing press. This above the Mridanga is the printing press. And he put this to show the devotees that the other side of spiritual life is to develop love for Krishna by hearing about Krishna, by chanting about Krishna, but also by spreading the glory of Krishna. And then here you see the 6 triangles. These denote the 6 qualities of Krishna. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashriya jnana vairagyayascheva sanam bhaga itingana. So what Bhaktisedanta Saraswati Thakur was saying through the logo is when you do all of these sides, not just half of it, when you do all of the sides, then what that will eventually do is it will give you an appreciation and an attachment and an attraction for all of Krishna's qualities. And then right in the middle, Om Nam. Ultimately, all of this then will allow you to chant Krishna's names with deep absorption, with deep relish. And here on the bottom, Guru Gauranga Jayata, worshipping Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya is the top and the bottom of it. To ultimately attain attraction to Krishna, Pancharatra, Raga Marg, get an attachment to Krishna's qualities, and then ultimately the center of it all is Nam, because Hare Nam Eva Kevalam. So you can even see through this logo how Bhaktisedanta Saraswati Thakur was orientating the devotees that don't just take care of your own spiritual life. Even if it's one other person, even if it's 5 other people, whoever it is, but just go out and share and try to uplift and help others. Because in sharing Krishna consciousness, we receive so much more. Before I go on, does anyone have any questions or anything you'd like to ask on this? Anyone? Okay.
Hare Krishna. When you begin preaching, or at least trying to preach, you're very enthusiastic. There's no, like you just get into it and you welcome everyone, but then after some time you can pick up, like you kind of get discriminative, and it's not the same enthusiasm, it's not the same compassion, it's not the same. So how do you keep up with the mode you start with? How do you maintain it throughout?
So in the beginning, we preach, we're very, very open, we go to everyone, give everyone a chance. Then later on we become a little cynical, and then we may not approach everyone, we may think, oh, this type of person is good, this type of person is not ready. So how do we maintain that? If you just continue not discriminating in your preaching, and if you continue just approaching everyone, then what will happen is, as a preacher, you will get the stark realization that you have no idea who is going to be interested in Krishna consciousness. That realization comes to any preacher very, very quickly. On book distribution, that happens, and even when you do programs, you realize that sometimes the people who you think are so far away, who are not going to be interested, there's something within them. Because actually, there's no material qualification to take up bhakti. Sometimes the people who you feel don't have the qualification, sometimes there's a spark of inquisitiveness and desire within them. So I think if you continue just approaching everyone, giving everyone a chance. Srila Prabhupada, he went everywhere. He knew the places he would go where he would get a good reception. But still, Srila Prabhupada went to the difficult places. He went to the so-called places where the chances were very, very slim. When Srila Prabhupada went to Russia, he could hardly meet 2 or 3 people when he went there for 7 days. I think he was there for 7 days. But the amazing thing is that now the Krishna consciousness movement outside of India is the biggest in Russia. That's amazing. Prabhupada, for 7 days, he could hardly even go out because of the KGB and because of political instability. So we don't know. We go to places, we think it won't. Sometimes we do programs and we think no one's going to come, no one's coming. It's a failure. I grew up in Wembley, and once the devotees did a program in Wembley. This was in the late 70s. So they hired a big hall and they did a lot of promotion. And you know how many people turned up? 3. 3 people turned up. So they were just thinking like, oh my God, but they thought we hired the hall, all the equipment is here, let's just do the program for 3 people. So they did the program for those 3 people. And you know who those 3 people became? One of them was Shruti Dharma Prabhu, who ended up becoming the temple president of the Mana and served at the Mana for nearly 40 years. The second person was Pranabandhu Prabhu, who's still serving at the Mana 40 years later. And the third person was Atmani Vedant Swami. He came here, right? That's a good hit, right? You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. When you go out to preach, it's an adventure, it's exciting, it's completely... Bhaktivedanta Thakur says the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are going on even today. Adhyapiha Shei Leela Kahagoda Roy Kona Kona Bhagyavan Deki Balapoy. You don't have to wait to go back to the spiritual world to see Krishna's pastimes. They're happening even today. Gona Bhagyavan. But you have to be part of the Sankirtan movement. You have to be part of the adventure. You have to get up in the morning and get out there, and then something happens. Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur, you know what he would tell everyone in the temple? It doesn't matter what your service is, everyone should go out for 30 minutes. His rule in the Gaudiya Math was that every single day, everyone should knock 5 houses. Just 5 houses. And if they say no, they say no. But you do your 5 houses. You go out there. So that's very wonderful. It's very beautiful. So many people are here. You can just go for 15 minutes, isn't it? You just walk down we were there today. That market was intense. But it was nice, no? Just go out for Harinam. For when it's so easy, you just walk out, everyone's there. And boy, do they need the mercy. So it's very beautiful. So we just have to be an agent of goodwill, and it happens. So this was the heart. If you want to feel the presence of the acharyas, you have to do what's close to their heart. Like my spiritual master, His Holiness Keshava Maharaj, he came to the movement in 1978. So once I was in a class where he was giving class, and someone put his hand up, he said, "How do you feel? You just missed Prabhupada. You missed him by 1 year. How do you feel?" And he looked back at the devotee and he said, "I meet Srila Prabhupada every single day. I feel the presence of Srila Prabhupada every single day. Because when we're serving, when we're doing what was most dear to him, Prabhupada came on national television, he said, 'I'm begging you, please help me spread the Krishna consciousness movement.' Look how many of us are in this room. If we all did our bit, how much people could be saved from so much suffering." Jayananda Prabhu said that. He said, if all of us could become a little more inspired, how many people could be saved from suffering? So it's such an honor to be able to go out and we feel the presence. And this is a heavy, heavy burden of love. Keshava Maharaj, he would often say that every single year on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day in Srila Prabhupada's rooms in Vrindavan, at the time when Srila Prabhupada left, all the Prabhupada disciples is very small, so you have to be a senior person to get in there. So he would talk about the atmosphere in Srila Prabhupada's rooms. And what would happen every single year on that day, even to this day, is what happens is after the time when Srila Prabhupada is departed, then His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, he brings out Prabhupada's chadar that Prabhupada was wearing when he left the world. And what His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj does is he goes around the room and he puts it on everyone's head. And His Holiness Keshava Maharaj, he said, when he would put Prabhupada's chadar on your head, you would feel the heavyweight responsibility. That chadar was heavy. You would feel the heavy responsibility that Srila Prabhupada wants us to do something for this movement. So, yeah, it's a great privilege. So we should just go out and be kind. And we don't know who will take it up. Anyone can take it up. Is that okay? So this is preaching. Okay, let's move on a little bit. So this was another very, very strong point that His Divine Grace Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur would make. Cheating and weakness are two separate things. Persons devoid of a cheating propensity achieve perfection in life, but a cheater is never successful. Bhaktisedanta Saraswati, he had a Mahavakya that he would always share. Saralata e Vaishnavatva. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. And when he said simplicity is Vaishnavism, he said a real Vaishnav doesn't necessarily mean someone who never makes a mistake, who's completely pure, but a real Vaishnav is one who is simple and not duplicitous, not hypocritical. The real Vaishnav is the sincere one who's honest and open and truthful even when they undergo some weakness. Saraswati Thakur said, to err is human. So to some extent we will make mistakes. But the fourth defect of the conditioned soul is the propensity to cheat. That you have choice over. Yes, you may have imperfect senses, become illusioned and make mistakes. That's acceptable. But what you can make the choice is, once you make a mistake, are you going to cheat? Are you going to cover it up? Are you going to hide it? Are you going to deny it? Are you going to cover yourself? Then Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur says, weakness is not a problem. We understand, everyone is weak. But we shouldn't cheat. We should be honest. And if we have that truthfulness, in the beginning we were talking about how a sadhu has to be truthful when speaking to the world. But a sadhu, a saintly person, is truthful first to themselves. First in their own life, to admit if there's some weakness. And if we do that, then we can again very, very easily come to perfection. So Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur was very kind. Even sometimes when devotees went away, when they left, then he would make sure, he would try to bring them back. He would cry when a devotee left. And he would always want to give someone another chance. Yes, I understand, it's difficult. It's difficult to practice spiritual life in Kali Yuga. But be honest, be open, take help, and you can overcome it. And in this way, through truthfulness, he was very much encouraging the devotees. But if we try to be very secretive about it, then it becomes very difficult. Like one time someone came to Saraswati Thakur and said, why is it that some people are in the math for so many years, but it doesn't seem like they're making much advancement? And he said, it's just like someone who has worms in the stomach. If you have worms in your stomach, then even though you may eat so much, those worms take all the nourishment and your body doesn't get any. So he said they have the worms of secret bad habits and secret activities that don't support the development of bhakti. And so he was making this point that weakness is okay, but be truthful. So like this. I'll share some final thoughts that Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur said. These now are some shocking statements that he made. You may say the others were already quite shocking. Sometimes Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur, he made statements that when people heard it, they were just like, wow, they couldn't fully understand it. But later on, when they contemplated it, it made a lot of sense. So I'm going to ask you to unravel some of these statements and tell me what you understand by them. One of the statements that Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur once made, he said, Hiranyakashipu better proclaimed the glory of Nrsingadev than did Prahlad. He said this once in a lecture, that Hiranyakashipu actually glorified Nrsingadev better than Prahlad. Can anyone think what he was meaning by this? In what way did Hiranyakashipu proclaim the glory, reveal the glory of Nrsingadev more than even Prahlad? Yeah.
So he was like Nrsingadev's enemy. So he made him really angry because like he was hurting a devotee of Nrsingadev, and when he got angry, then like he showed how great he really was.
Excellent. Perfect. Yeah, he was making the point that actually Hiranyakashipu and his antagonism, his aggression, his mistreatment of Prahlad actually made the Lord so angry that the love of the Lord in the form of the anger that then came to protect his devotee showed how much Krishna loves his devotee. And therefore Hiranyakashipu said, Bhaktisedanta Saraswati Thakur said, Hiranyakashipu was the one who brought out the glory actually of Nrsimhadev. He said the ones that brought out the glory of Lord Chaitanya were Jagai and Madai, isn't it? Nityananda wanted that. He wanted to specifically go to Jagai and Madai and deliver them, because he knew by interacting with them, Lord Chaitanya's glory will go even higher. And who revealed the glory of Lord Ram? Ravan. Because it was Ravan who captured Sita, and then Ram's love for Sita, his complete dedication, that endeavor to go and rescue her, all of that came from Ravan's lust. So like this, sometimes he would make statements and they seemed like in the beginning very, very counterintuitive, but very, very deep. This is another shocking statement that he made. He said, the neophytes ringing the temple bell is more beneficial than opening millions of hospitals. At this time in Bengal, so much very good philanthropic work was being done. Hospitals were opening and other things. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the worship going on in the temple of the Pujari is more beneficial and more significant to the world than opening millions of hospitals. Now this was, for some devotees, this was very difficult to digest. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was not against philanthropic work. He was not against welfare and helping people. Of course, people are suffering, we should help them. But he was making the point that as the Krishna consciousness movement, our unique contribution to the world is to actually help people revive their spiritual consciousness. Because that's the ultimate act of welfare work that's going to get them out of the material world. The hospital may help someone for some time, and in that sense it's very, very good. It's very nice that that individuals do that kind of philanthropic work. But devotees, they have the opportunity to give people something far greater, something which actually gets to the root of the problem, something which solves their problems on a much deeper level. And therefore he said, by opening temples, by having worship, by people hearing Hari Kirtan, Hari Katha, by going out and spreading the message, this is actually more beneficial than all of that philanthropic work, because it solves the problem at the root. And so this was a very, very strong point that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made. Again, not to say that people are doing anything wrong by philanthropic work, but devotees have something much greater that they have to offer to the world, the ultimate solution, the ultimate spiritual welfare work. And here's one final shocking statement that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made. See if you can decode it. Kurukshetra is the best place for bhajan. Only bogus, hollow people favor Vrindavan. Put your hand up if you like Vrindavan. What did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mean by this? Only bogus, hollow people favor Vrindavan? Kurukshetra? How many of you have been Kurukshetra? Few. Why is Kurukshetra so special? Why does Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur give so much emphasis here? Can you give me the mic?
Hare Krishna, from my little understanding, I think this statement was made out of extreme bhav, almost like it was coming from Srila Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur's eternal position. And it was pointing to the fact that the deepest separation from Krishna was uttered from Radharani and the gopis' mouths when they met at Kurukshetra. As in that, Kurukshetra is actually the place where the residents of Vrindavan met with Krishna as he was a prince. And the feelings of the gopis, and especially Srimati Radharani, was extremely heightened, because although they could access him, they accessed him there as a prince. So they were constantly remembering Krishna in the form of a cowherd boy. And that's where they wanted to, pull him back to Vrindavan. And it almost feels like this statement is mentioning very deeply the feelings of Mahaprabhu towards Lord Jagannath, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Thank you so much, very nice. Anyone want to add anything to that? Yeah, Mahaprabhu?
Kurukshetra is famous for the Mahabharata war, and we also have to fight every day with Maya. So if you want to do bhajan, we have to fight with Maya all the time. Whereas Vrindavan is like when you are peaceful, you go there and just chant. It becomes very easy.
Okay, nice. Yeah, someone at the back, Paramlopa.
There is more service opportunity in Kurukshetra.
There's more service opportunity in Kurukshetra?
Yeah.
Service to who?
Service to Radharani.
Okay.
She needs Krishna, she needs more support there.
Good. Good. Yeah, Prabhu had also. Someone? Yeah.
In Kurukshetra is where the Gita was spoken. And it was spoken to save all the conditioned souls, but in Vrindavan there are already devotees, and we hear of Srila Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur's inclination towards preaching, and yeah. So.
Okay, very good. Okay, these are very good answers, and of course all of them touch on points. The first thing, as Yadavendra Prabhu mentioned, is that sometimes when statements are made like this, it's not so much to put Vrindavan down, but it's to emphasize the other side. So it's a statement which is made out of extreme bhav, as was mentioned, extreme emotion. And of course, Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur had the highest reverence for Vrindavan. But what is significant about Kurukshetra? Before we answer that question, Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur made another statement. He said, some people are interested in Radharani because of her connection with Krishna. But we are interested in Krishna because of his connection with Radharani. In other words, Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur said, the Vaishnavas are worshippers of Vishnu. He said the Karshnas are worshippers of Krishna. But the Gaudiyas are worshippers of Radharani. Now this is again very, very transcendental, but just to give you some context to it. In the transcendental relationship between Radha and Krishna, the Gaudiyas are on whose side? Radharani's side. They are always favorable towards Srimati Radharani. One Vaishnava poet, he says, Krishna, there are so many aparadhikas, offenders in the world, and you forgive them. But Krishna, if you become an aparadhika, if you go far away from Srimati Radharani, we'll never forgive you. And therefore the devotees, the Gaudiyas, they are always favorable to Srimati Radharani. And therefore they are always looking at the place that they can go to where they can serve Srimati Radharani. And where is Srimati Radharani's pain the greatest? Where is her need for service, her need for those around her to comfort her the most? That is in Kurukshetra. Because in Kurukshetra she meets Krishna after a long time. But she's saying, you're the same Krishna, I'm the same Srimati Radharani, but we can't enjoy here because there's too much formality. The aesthetics of our environment do not support the connection. And therefore, please Krishna, come back to Vrindavan. She's praying, begging, beseeching Krishna to come. And therefore the intensity of Srimati Radharani's love at that time reaches an unparalleled peak. Therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur revealed 3 places where separation is very, very great. One is Kurukshetra, the other one is Jagannath Puri, and the third one is, begins with A, Alalnath. Because Alalnath is the place that Mahaprabhu went to when Jagannath goes into seclusion. And he can't see Jagannath in those weeks. And then Mahaprabhu goes to Alalnath and feels great separation from Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani like that. So therefore he said Kurukshetra is the best place for bhajan, because the best type of bhajan is done in the mood of separation. If you really want to do bhajan, if you really want to connect with Krishna, then you have to cry for Krishna. And you can only cry for Krishna, you can only develop that kind of desperation in your heart if you feel separated from Krishna. Isn't it? Therefore Srila Prabhupada said we should chant for the Hare Krishna mantra like a child cries for the mother. So therefore he said, because Kurukshetra is the place of Radharani's great separation, then to reside there, to serve Srimati Radharani, and to imbibe that mood of separation, it becomes the best place for bhajan. And then one realizes, oh okay, now I understand why he said that. So like this, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went from very, very practical elements to teaching the highest things of spiritual life, the most secret of all secrets. And this was the glory. This is the glory of a great teacher, that they're able to come down to the world and elevate even the lowest people and gradually bring them up to the highest revelations of the spiritual reality. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did both. He was externally active in serving the world, but he was internally incredibly deep. He was practical, but he was incredibly spiritual. He was a manager, but he was ultimately, in his eternal identity in the spiritual world, so much aloof from this world. And that is the glory of these great teachers, that they are here, functioning, dealing with the world, practically giving us guidance on how to navigate the issues of the day, when internally they're in a completely different space. And they help us to make the journey from this world to that world. And therefore we began this seminar by talking about the parampara, and how the parampara descending, helping us to make our way back to that world. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, by his life, by his teachings, by his incredible insights, by his devotion, by his incredible spiritual accomplishment, he teaches us how to navigate the here and now, and then ultimately how to have the highest aspirations to ultimately reach Krishna in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. A few minutes, 5-10 minutes, if anyone has any questions or any comments or any final things you would like to ask, then we can have a little bit of discussion. Yeah, sure.
So, obviously because you were going to give this seminar, I'm sure you've done a lot of research into the life of Bhaktisiddhanta and probably not revealed everything just because of the time limitations. But if you look at the life of Bhaktisiddhanta, and especially the book that was written by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, right? A lot of information is there. If Bhaktisiddhanta, I know it's a little bit of a weirdly posed question, but if Bhaktisiddanta Sarasvati Thakur came into ISKCON today and saw the state of the way things are, do you think he would have been very conservative still? Because when he came to present Krishna consciousness at that time in Bengal, he was very conservative with giving, you can say, the highest truth. But today there are devotees, some devotees are happy with the way the presentation of Krishna conscious philosophy is, but some people like to look for, you can say, deeper esoteric aspects in Krishna consciousness. And there is a move towards it, whether you call it Raganuga Bhakti, whether you call it Shringaras. But do you think Bhaktisiddhanta would have been still conservative? Or do you think he would have delved into the topics deeper if he was present today? I just wanted to know your view on it.
Sure. I think it's impossible to guess. Vaishnaveda Kriya Mudra Vigyayana Bujvai, who can understand the mind of the Vaishnava, how they would react. But what we can say is that the incredible thing about Bhaktisiddanta Sarasvati Thakur is that he brought to the world an incredibly practical spiritual teaching and also an incredibly deep and esoteric teaching. Now he brought both things together. This is actually very, very incredible. Even Srila Prabhupada did the same. Sometimes people say in Srila Prabhupada's books is still for elementary, the highest truths are not given, there's higher things that need to be explored. But actually Srila Prabhupada's books are like a zip file, and according to one's accomplishment, one can actually find deeper and deeper truths within Srila Prabhupada's books, and someone who's at a very beginning stage can get the teachings they require. So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was giving both. He was giving a practical, achievable, a relevant spiritual teaching to the world, and he was giving incredibly deep things as well. There was some reservation on Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur's part to kind of openly talk about very esoteric aspects of Krishna's pastimes. We see that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur had incredibly qualified disciples. If we read the second volume of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj's compilation, then it goes through all the disciples that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur had. And if you read about them, I mean, they're incredibly accomplished personalities. But even with them, he was very, very conservative. He went to Radha Kund. He went to all esoteric places in Braj, and he spoke philosophy. He spoke very, very technical things. Even Srila Prabhupada remembers that he was with Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur in Koshi, on the edge of Vrindavan when they were doing parikrama. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was not delving into deep and esoteric things. Srila Prabhupada even famously tells when they were on the banks of Radha Kund, then Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur revealed his heart on the bank of Radha Kund to Srila Prabhupada. And what did he say? If you ever get money, print books. So it's very interesting that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, if you look at his life, he didn't actually openly, that's not to say it shouldn't be there. Here you can see, he's also giving. But that cultivation must be done very cautiously amongst Vaishnavas who go through the proper preparation, through the proper purification, through the proper process. Otherwise we may not appreciate, we may not be able to actually understand what that is. So yes, here he is revealing the highest truths of Radha Dasyam, that a Vaishnava's ultimate aspiration is to worship Srimati Radharani and serve her. But that same Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur said, shed 200 gallons of blood to help the world. And maybe if someone sheds 200 gallons of blood and makes that kind of endeavor and sacrifice, maybe then we'll be qualified to also talk and hear about these other things that he had to share. So the glory of an Acharya is they give access to everyone on all levels. But we must know what part of the Acharya's teachings are relevant to our life at this part of our spiritual progress. And even with I'll just say one last thing on preaching. Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur had this very direct, cutting, presentation of Krishna consciousness that this is, I have to tell people the truth. But then sometimes what people don't see is that Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur also did a lot of bridge preaching as well. For example, he had a newspaper, and it's very interesting. In his newspaper, you know what he did? On the front page and the back page, he just put mundane news. Just put mundane news, like totally mundane, nothing spiritual. But then on the inside, he put all the real stuff. Because he knew if people see the spiritual stuff on the outside, immediately who's going to pick it up?
No one.
But if they read this and then they go inside, then they'll be able to teach. Now if that's not bridge preaching, I don't know what is. So he was also making a bridge, but then he was taking people across the bridge and bringing them to the real thing. So it's hard to say what he would say about ISKCON. ISKCON is so different as well. Like here we are in Nairobi. If you go to London or if you go to Australia, every place is different. Every place has its strengths and its areas that it needs to improve on. But by meditating on this, we can see, after we see all of these statements, we can introspect and say, what part of these statements do we need to put more emphasis on to be more in line with Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur? Some thoughts?
Could I ask one more quick question?
Yeah, sure.
You know, Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to serve chicken and wine.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for your insight on the previous.
Yeah.
That was very helpful. When he wanted to serve chicken and wine, and he was ready to do that, he was ready to break so-called dharma in order to, give paradharma. To what extent can preachers, following in his line, follow that? Follow those sorts of principles without breaking a certain boundary of Vaishnava decorum? Because it would be very bold for maybe anyone in this room
To do such a thing.
to do such a thing.
Yeah. Therefore, better to err on the side of caution. We will make adjustments of time, place and circumstance when we can see there's a very clear correlation between the Acharya that we're following and what they did in that situation and the situation we currently find ourselves in. When we see there is a very clear correlation, a very clear similarity and sameness, then we can say, okay, they did it in that situation, all the parameters are the same here, therefore we can kind of with some confidence say we can do it again in this situation. But generally, such extreme things like that, we would err on the side of caution and therefore not take a risk. How much should we preserve the principles You can go off the road on both sides. You can go off the road by adjusting too much, and you can go off the road by being too rigid. And so finding that balance is the golden $64 million question. What is a principle that's unbreakable, and what is a detail which can be adjusted? Shuti Kirti Prabhu was once massaging Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Prabhupada, how do you know the difference between a detail and a principle? So Prabhupada was quiet. And then he looked at Shuti Kirti Prabhu and he said, that requires some intelligence. That was the answer. So we have to be careful, but if we pray to the parampara, and if we follow their instructions, and if we're desirous and sincere, then we can be assured that they will empower us with their intelligence. And I guess the last practical thing that I would say is that Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur was an acharya. So he was specifically empowered on his own inspiration to make an adjustment, even if everyone around him couldn't understand it. But we're not an acharya, so if we think we need to make an adjustment, then the safe way to do it is always to discuss amongst the sadhus together. And in that way we can make appropriate adjustments that are supported by Guru Sadhu Shastra, and that protects us and helps us to be more effective. Some thoughts? Thank you. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So in one of the shocking statements, Bhaktisedanta Saraswati Maharaj said that a neophyte ringing bells in the temple is more beneficial than opening millions of hospitals. So Saraswati Thakur is leaning towards cultivating a spiritual progress.
Spiritual welfare work.
Yeah. So my question is, in our preaching work, does philanthropic acts have a place? For instance, we see so many Christian organizations, many Muslim organizations, and so on. It's spread because of starting so many hospitals, schools, and so on. Can ISKCON?
Should we do that? Yeah, as soon as you do philanthropic work, then you become very popular. As soon as you do philanthropic work, you get a lot of support, you get a lot of goodwill. Therefore, you find many, many religious organizations spread through philanthropic work. The danger is that many religious movements also lost their spirituality because of philanthropic work. There are Christian organizations which began very, very spiritual, and then once they got into philanthropic work, because naturally that brings more goodwill, more popularity, then eventually what happened is the focus of their activities became more and more on philanthropy and less on spirituality. So we can do it, but we must always remember that all the philanthropy in the world is ultimately meant to help us bring genuine spirituality to people. Otherwise, what happens is through that philanthropy we drift from our real mission. Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur said, if someone has a boil and you simply blow on it, then they may glorify you for helping them, but actually you haven't helped them. You need to lance it out. And they may not appreciate that. So the devotees utilize philanthropy, but it has to be done very, very carefully. Otherwise what will happen is we'll dilute. See, in this world, hundreds and thousands and millions of people will do philanthropy. But those hundreds and millions and thousands of people don't have the spiritual knowledge to get people out of this world. Now we can do philanthropy, but there's already hundreds and thousands of people out there doing it. But the one thing we've got that other people can't give them is the key to get out of this mess. And if we engage our time, energy and resources in doing philanthropic work that, to be honest, other people could do, and instead we engage our time in that rather than giving the spiritual message, then maybe we're doing a disservice to the world. So that doesn't mean we don't help the world, it doesn't mean we don't do practical things, it doesn't mean when there's a problem in another country that we don't go and offer assistance, but we have to make sure that all of it is ultimately bringing people to spiritual awareness. Otherwise, we don't do the best thing we can do for them. And that's why Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur made such strong statements to help us realize that we have to stay focused on the unique thing. Like every company has a USP, right? A unique selling thing that they're giving that no one else gives. So the USP of the Krishna consciousness movement is not opening hospitals. The USP of the Krishna consciousness movement is giving Krishna Bhakti. Because it's only Krishna Bhakti which gets you out of this world. Yeah.
So a follow-up question. How do we develop this mode of squeezing the boil rather than blowing on it? And even more in our devotee circles, because even we ourselves need to squeeze the boil to be able to go deeper in our spiritual lives. And that brought to the question, should we project our when we are trying to cultivate this mode, should we project it towards our devotees, the people who are around us? Should we try and tell them, okay, fast Nirjala Ekadashi, or do some things that are going to help us to sort of go deeper in that sense?
So how do you deepen your spirituality? How do we encourage devotees to do that as the ultimate solution? Is that what your question is? Right.
Yeah, without many sadhus are able to speak strong and don't regret. But sometimes when we make statements towards devotees that this is what you need to do, and it's a very strong statement, and we end up just thinking to ourselves, oh my, maybe I spoke too strongly towards this devotee.
Yeah, therefore Krishna consciousness requires a lot of personalism. So there's not one set formula for everyone. When we read all of these statements by the acharyas, when we read different principles in Shastra, then what we do is we take all of those principles and we realize that with ourselves and with others we all need to come to this point. But how we do it, in what order, at what level of intensity, that requires specific, a tailor-made approach to each person. So therefore, the art is to bend without breaking. Therefore, sometimes we can just advise people in a very, very light way, and we don't take them as far as they can go. And sometimes we can just be so heavy that we break them. And therefore a devotee eventually knows how to bend someone, how to bend themselves and bend other people without breaking them. And that is a sensitivity towards ourselves and a sensitivity towards others that we will develop in time. So, yeah. It's like when you do fundraising. After some time in fundraising, when you're dealing with people, you know how much they can do. Some people will ask for too less, some people will ask for too much. But after some time you understand like where this person is, where their faith is, what their situation is, they can do this much. So in the same way, spiritually, we get more of a sixth sense of how much we can do at this point and how much others can do. And therefore the devotees know how to bring out the best in everyone. And that requires some intelligence. I see more hands, but I'm just thinking of time because there's prasadam as well, and it's Thursday. Shelby, you can ask. Okay.
Maharaj, this whole class, Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur, the presentation that you did was really wonderful, and it was all about him being really bold, and yet 80% of the class was about developing the humility. A lot of the times it's very, very difficult to draw the line between being bold and humble. Very, very difficult. It's a grey area as to where should you be bold, and whether we're dealing with outsiders or whether we're dealing with devotees, it's very, very difficult to know which is the right place to be bold, to stand up, and which is the place where you really need to bow down. So if you could shed a little bit of light on that, please.
So like Kamita was doing the retreat the other day, and he got everyone to do that, fill in the gaps. So he said humility is not to think less of yourself, but humility is to think of yourself less. Okay? Humility is not to think less of yourself, but it's to think of yourself less. When you take yourself out of the center, when it's not about you, when it's not about your ego, your pride, your vanity, but you're simply doing something for the benefit of that other person, you can be very, very bold, and it doesn't compromise your humility in any way. Because when Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur shouted at someone and spoke very, very boldly, there was no ego, there was no pride, there was no anger and enmity or animosity towards them, because he had taken himself completely out. And therefore when people heard it, because they knew, although it was strong, it was coming from a place of no ego, therefore they never felt bad about it. So humility and boldness can be perfectly combined in the pure devotee, because the humility comes from the fact that they've taken themselves out of the center. And when you take yourself out of the center, you can do anything for Krishna and be very, very bold. Therefore Srila Prabhupada said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, humility means to be bold for Krishna. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very, very bold, very, very outspoken, but it was all for Krishna. So therefore, humility doesn't mean that we're just meek, that we're in the background, that we're not ready to say anything, but it means that we take ourselves out of the center, and then we can speak for someone's benefit. Okay? Okay, thank you very much for your kind attention and for attending. Srila Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur ki.
His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Swami ki Jai. So we'd like to take this opportunity to thank Maharaj. He has a very, very busy schedule. The whole year is already booked before the year starts. But Maharaj has given us his wonderful time here. And we'd like to thank Maharaj with 3 loud Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or the full Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. And we request Maharaj to be coming more frequently to Nairobi. More than once a year would be also nice. and also to bless us that we can imbibe these teachings of Srila Bhaktisedanta Sarasvati Thakur in our own lives and learn from his teachings and be able to apply them with our dealings with devotees and with others as well. We also have a book table where there are Maharaj's books there. Those who didn't have or get a copy in the last 3 days can have a chance to get them today. And we also have some takeaway prasad that Maharaj is going to be giving to everyone. So first come, first serve. And we also have prasadam in the temple prasadam hall for those of you who wish to partake. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.